All right, guys, what's going on? Welcome in, welcome in. What's up, K9 Bronco? Let's go, let's go. I started the stream a little bit. Oh, shoot. I got my sound on my YouTube. My bad. All right, we're here with Goldie, guys, today. My bad. It's going to be a semi quick show. We are behind a little bit on FanDuel. We might even discuss a little bit more FanDuel, a little bit for me, per se. But we got Goldie here. We got his projections up. I got his projections sorted here, looking at different guys. We got to go player, position by position a little bit, talk about what we did a video Friday night. Um, we're going to answer you guys' questions, so fire them in the chat. Also, don't forget to hit the like button. And also, if you're not subscribed to the channel, guys, we appreciate it. So we're going to have a good little show here today, and we're going to have a good time. Goldie, how you doing today?
Yo, let's get it. I'm stoked, man. I'm looking forward to the slate. Feel like we've got a bunch of different spots. Like we talked about the other day. We can, really get different. I think there's some chalk. Some of it good, some of it maybe not so good, right?
Yeah.
And that like we talked about the other day. It's that always usually means that it's a pretty good tournament slate. So, I think some sneaky spots that we can get to. We talked, a good bit about them the other day, but maybe another couple other ones that maybe pop in here a bit this morning. We'll get into it as we go, but looking forward to it, man. Let's do it.
Yeah. So, maybe let's start out with like where we're gonna attack today. Like, what are some of your favorite stacks? Have you changed from the Friday show any, or are you still on some of the stacks that we talked about on Friday?
Yeah, a little bit. I mean, I pivoted a little bit, I think, and that's just as I've been kind of building teams. The pricing is, even though we got a bunch of top, cheap guys. The wide receiver value for sure, definitely some cheap running back value. If you want to try and get off some of that stuff, but still get to some really good plays, then I've been finding it a little bit difficult to really manage salary. It was a little bit tighter than I was kind of expecting when I actually started building teams. So, for example, just pivoting straight to, we talked about the Baltimore game, right? Pivoting off of the heavy Josh Allen chalk that we're seeing. He's pushing 18%, 20% now. That's a big number for a quarterback. So if you wanted to pivot straight off of him, get to Lamar Jackson, I mean, it's a killer pivot, right? He's coming in sub 7%. So the issue is that, I mean, you don't necessarily need to stack Lamar with a pass catcher, right? Because he's got so much rushing upside. But if he's going to hit a 40-point ceiling or whatever, it's almost kind of hard to imagine that Mark Andrews doesn't have a pretty good day as well, right? So if you want to get to both of those guys, an 8,100 Lamar on DK and a 7,000 Mark Andrews, for example, I mean, you're kind of like, that sticks it to you a little bit, right? So a little bit more difficult to navigate. And then if you want to try and get to some expensive running backs in the same build, you're then all of a sudden punting one, if not two spots, right? So it makes it a little bit harder to just take some of these straight price pivots in your stacks. So what that has kind of led me to is, some of the cheaper quarterbacks, right? And not necessarily totally fading Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson, and Mahomes, but coming off of them a little bit, because those three guys are going to garner 35% of the quarterback ownership, and naturally that'll just funnel you toward a bunch of really popular plays in those games. So um, that kind of means that if you want to get off of all of that stuff, you got to come down to the cheaper quarterbacks, right? And we talked a little bit about the Minnesota stack, right? That has been really looking good since Miami is terrible in pass defense. They're a pass funnel, and they should be able to. Vikings should be able to take advantage of that pretty aggressively today. The issue I'm running into with that stack in particular is I still have concerns with how Miami's going to score. Right? They got a third string quarterback back there. They don't rush the ball very well. So it's going to be kind of difficult, I think, for them to control clock and really control tempo. So that is taking me off of the Minnesota stack a little bit as we move into lock here in the next couple hours. Not to say like I still obviously like them, right? It's one of the best spots of the day for sure, but I'm considering, in like my single entry team, for example, pivoting off of a Minnesota stack just because I've got offensive concerns for Miami over there. So that's kind of the stuff I'm running into this morning. And if I'm pivoting off of a Minnesota or something like that, we had Rich mention it in chat here that I'm getting really intrigued. We talked about it the other day. Really intrigued with the Packers Jets game here. I think there's going to be. I mean, nobody's going to play it, and I think it's a little easier to navigate some salary in that game because you don't have to eat 8,900 on Justin Jefferson, for example, or 8,400 or whatever it is on a Steph Diggs. You can get to some cheaper pass catchers in the spots are really not all that different. So I'm finding that I'm pivoting a little bit to some lower owned stuff than I had originally kind of projected. How are you finding it this morning?
Yeah, I did end up building a bunch of Rodgers stacks, more in like large field stuff, like the $3, like one where you got to get really different. So like super stack in that Jets Packers game there, or even in the Millie Maker, threw a few in there.
Yep.
I do like the Lamar Jackson call still off of Josh Allen. I'm a little bit lighter off Josh Allen, I think. I'm really off Diggs, guys. I mean, if Diggs has 40 points today, I'm just gonna close the laptop type game. I think his price is too high for what he does. He's not a Cooper Kupp type play. I mean, they spread the ball around. You got Dawson Knox coming back. You got Isaiah McKenzie there. You got Gabe Davis is hitting it, clicking with Josh Allen. Josh Allen runs the ball. So to spend up at a Diggs at 8,400, guys, I don't really like that play. Also on the other side of that game, you got Mahomes. He's been spreading it out a lot too. Kelsey's been huge though for the touchdowns, and like him and Andrews today at the tight end spot are just like huge upside plays. I mean, I even like stacking them together. I mean, one of my big lineups, I think I have them stacked together. Just like I like both those guys today in the game environments they're in, and I just think that that's a viable option. I'm getting on to more Lamar. I know a lot of people are still playing the Josh Allen, and everyone's like last week, like, oh, fade Josh Allen, and then Josh Allen's like in every winner, but like I do like the Green Bay. I did run a Kirk Cousins, Justin Jefferson, Irv Smith stack type thing with no run back in Miami. I don't really have a lot of Miami today. Another stack I'm probably getting to is a little bit more Tampa. Godwin and Fournette are great prices. You can stack them together with Brady as well. I know Goldie talked about Brady naked. I haven't got to that one yet, but I'll probably build a couple of those. I'm also on that Cincy game, New Orleans. I really like Kamara's price today. I think he's a great play. And then Chase looks like a viable option. We still got news on Higgins we're waiting on. I've always been a Boyd fan too.
Yeah.
So a stack there, and Hayden Hurst stack with Joe Burrow as well. You can even stack Mixon, Joe Burrow, and Chase together. I think that's very viable, and Burrow has seen upside with that stack. That's one before big money, Mixon, Chase, and Burrow before. So I like that game and run it back with Kamara. I know there's a couple value receivers now opening up in that game with no Chris Olave.
Yeah,
Sorry.
Olave. There you go.
I got it right. Look at that, Goldie. I got it right. Holy crap. The biggest question I have today is, I know like everyone's like, Sheets was talking Higbee chalk. I really don't have a lot of Higbee. I'm kind of getting these cheaper guys, or like I'm spending up at these tight ends. I really like these tight ends today, these expensive ones. But another thing is this Arizona Seattle game is just like, it's like I'm finding myself on DK just way too much into it. Like I just want these pieces. And I even got super stacks of that with Kyler Murray. I got some Geno super stacks, like just like 5 or 6 guys in that game, and like just stacking it up every way. It reminds me of the same game when Lions Seattle won in the Millie. where the guy had 5 guys in the lineup, 6 guys in the lineup, 3 on the other side with a Geno, DK, Metcalf stack type thing. Brown's getting a lot of looks. Eno's getting at 4,600. You got Rondell Moore at 4,200. I mean, these guys are just hard to get off of in these lineups, and I'm just struggling to not use those guys every time I want to do like a player from that game in my lineup, and so I'm kind of getting different enough where I think that I want those guys, but like I also feel like if you guys you should probably either super stack that game, like I'm saying, like where you play a lot of guys from it, or not play that game. I kind of think that's the best way, but that's kind of not how I'm doing it today. I want to be transparent as much as I can. I feel like I'm building bad lineups because I'm playing a lot of that game, but I'm also getting different in other places. But I feel like everyone's gonna have those guys, so you really got to hit the nuts when you're playing that game and you're playing like a Lockett, one off, or Kenneth Brown one, like running back receiver correlation. People are gonna have those guys, right? So like if that game goes off like it should be, that means like Geno and Kyler Murray are starting to get a lot of points too. So like Geno and like the cheap quarterbacks, like Goldie just said, like they're gonna start moving up on the board. So
Yep.
Did you want to go into position by position, or you want to just I kind of general overview everything, guys? I haven't seen any more questions pop in the chat, so if you guys have any, drop some questions in. Appreciate it. I know there's a lot going on today. People are building lineups, and not much news we're waiting on today, I would say. But like, I think it's a very good tournament slate. Like Goldie said, there's the biggest news I would say. Actually, I want to talk about news. Damian Harris is still a game time decision as of 3 hours ago.
Yeah.
I have not been ever on the New England running backs because they split carries, they get random weird touchdowns, and they get a lot of stuff that goes on very weird in their backfield. So like I tend to be lower on their backfield, but like Stevenson is going to pop. Obviously, he's the guy. But if Damian Harris does start getting some snaps or something, or makes the game today, that could be dicey for a 20% owned. I think we got him at 20%, right?
I mean, yeah, I'm showing him at 30.
30,
So,
30,
yeah,
30% here, guys. 30%
heavy,
owned
heavy
running
chalk.
back. I'm well under 30%, well under 10. I'm probably well under 10 on this guy. And I'm going to live or die with this. He'll probably get 2 touchdowns and 100 yards, and I'll be just looking at which Stevenson lineups do I have that are good? Because I mean, I have a little bit of them, but it's like I'm not going over the 30. That's for dang sure. So
yeah, I mean that's definitely something you generally don't want to do. Even with running backs, the workload is definitely going to be solidified if Damian Harris is out, right? That's and I think the ownership at 30% is justified really only in that scenario. And projection models as of now, right, until we actually get news with inactives coming out, probably in the next half hour or so, 20 minutes. Projection models as of now, they are projecting Damian Harris out for the most part, right? So that's why his ownership is so high. So it's probably not going to change all that much, if he is confirmed out, Damian Harris. So, that said, if he's confirmed in, I think you come off of him pretty aggressively. That doesn't mean you like totally fade him, because Cleveland really does give it up on the ground. They're pretty terrible against the run. That's their significant weakness. And Mac Jones is out again today, so New England's probably still going to want to rely on managing the clock and running the football. So their game plan is very likely to be rush heavy still. It's no secret that Belichick just attacks where he thinks he can exploit the most, right? And it's definitely on the ground with them. So if Damian Harris is out, I think you get some exposure to Stevenson for sure. Whether you broach that 30% mark, I mean, that's just kind of a risk tolerance thing. And if you're playing cash, I think he's just a lock. You probably just eat it. I think you can probably pivot off of the Eno Benjamin type of stuff in cash if you're playing Ramondre, because you still got to score a lot of points, and you still got to manage ownership a little bit in cash, right? So eating 60% on both your running backs probably isn't all that equitable for you long term. So if I were to fade one of them, it would be Eno. I have rushing game, rushing efficiency concerns for Arizona, and even though Seattle is an awful defense, I'm still really kind of puzzled as to why and how Arizona, whose offense has been really kind of horrendous all season, is laying points on the road here. So I'm concerned with that personally, and I mean, clearly I'm missing something. But if I were going to fade one of them, I think it would be Benjamin for me. I'd rather just eat the Ramondre Stevenson again, only if Damian Harris is out. So
yeah, that makes a lot of sense, I think. But like, the problem I'm getting is the pricing. The reason these guys are popping is because they are very cheap. It's not like Kyler Murray's not a decent quarterback, right? Like, yeah, they have not looked very good. They do have a few weapons, and they're throwing the ball to these weapons. And we know where the targets are going. Rondale Moore is looking fast and speedy. Marquise Brown's getting over 10 targets a game. Zach Ertz getting a ton of red zone looks. Benjamin's getting some dump off passes and did get a lot of usage now with both other running backs out. Like, he's the guy. So their price is 4,200, 4,600. And that's when I'm having a hard time getting off, because they're projected so well that if you start pivoting to other like low owned guys at their same price, like a little bit like above their prices, that you just lose out on so many median points. Like, you go from, like, you're losing out on the point per dollar basis on your lineup, and you're actually hurting your lineup getting into these weird builds. Like, you're guessing at these 3% owned guys that are like, oh, I'm going to go with, like Bryce Hall, for example. Like, he's sharing it with Michael Carter. We don't know who's going to get the touchdowns in that game. Yeah, Green Bay sucks and all that for run defense too.
Yep.
But at the same time, like, Carter could get both touchdowns. Bryce Hall might not get a touchdown in that game. And he's 5,800. And when Eno's getting all the work at 46, you're paying up to get different. But like, at the same time, you lost your 12. You spent $1,200 more, and you're not getting the value out of that 1,200. So that's where I'm getting a hard time. And like, and then the reason with Stevenson is, yeah, he's getting a lot of the work too. So that's why he's a smash spot. But like, maybe Cleveland gets up. That's a slow paced game. So maybe Cleveland gets a lead, and then they're chucking the ball, right? They're got to be chucking the ball. So, so yeah, him at 30% here is rough. But I like Jacoby Myers on the other side. But we also got no Mac Jones in today, so maybe they just suck and they can't move the ball. So I don't know.
Yep,
that's kind of my opinion. You want to lay out some quarterbacks? Or
yeah, we can go position by position here.
Yeah, Bobby's not around. What's the lowest on defense on FanDuel? Ooh, that's a good one. Defense on FanDuel.
I'm looking for it right now.
Lowest owned? They're all pretty low owned.
Yeah, I mean, and with defense,
the Atlanta Falcons guys.
Yeah, like
with Jimmy Garoppolo does throw picks every now and then.
Yeah, they're going to be pretty spread out in general, and even on FanDuel, like, you can just kind of throw in whatever defense sort of fits with the rest of your build. I don't think you're sacrificing all that much equity just because there's so much variance with defenses. So for the most part, you can you could just kind of play whoever fits, I think.
Yeah, I got a weird build on FanDuel. I got a double tight end with Lamar Jackson Andrews combo with Kelsey, and then I got like Saquon as a run back, which is pretty expensive, really hard to do on FanDuel, even with the pricing. You got a couple middle of the ochre guys like Dobbs. You got to use Romeo Dobbs. You got DJ Moore, Rondale Moore. Some of these cheaper receiver combos over there. A little bit. Henderson's a little bit cheaper on FanDuel. I really like him, but he's coming at 30% on FanDuel, guys. We're looking at FanDuel here for running backs. Henderson's coming in real high owned. I mean, he's not as high owned here. I got him at 30 on some sites, but it looks like he's going to fade out to about 22. But I mean, 5,700 on FanDuel, guys. This guy's going to get potentially all the work with no Cam Akers. Carolina's, kind of a chalkier defense today, but I do like the Rams some. I haven't been getting to a lot of them. Kupp's very expensive. Henderson's kind of cheap. I think he can get dump off passes in that game. Maybe he gets a couple touchdowns and no one has him. I got him kind of in a really weird lineup with cheap receivers today. I'm really on these cheap receivers. Like, I don't know. Like, I like some of these spend up running backs today. I love Kamara today. I know we skipped quarterback, but really when we talk quarterback guys, it's really who's in our stacks. I mean, we've already talked about our stacks that we like, Cousins, Burrow, Rodgers, Brady, no one's playing Mahomes today really. And he's viable, I think, with the Kelsey stat combo.
Yep,
but like
absolutely.
running backs is where you're going to make your money. You get the right running backs today, that's where you're going to win. Whether it's playing Chalk Stevenson and he gets the 2 touchdowns, Leonard Fournette in a great spot at 11%, I think. Barkley only coming in at 14s in a good game environment. I think he's looking really good this year. And I think Lamar Jackson on the other side of that game was Goldie talked about. I like him with Andrews. I think he's going to be in my main lineup today with a bunch of cheap receivers. So
yeah, that's really kind of just the decision you got to make if you go to that game. I like it too. Really do like the Lamar pivot off of Josh Allen, and I like a little bit of J.K. Dobbins as well. 5,500 makes the stacks and the run back a little bit more palatable since Saquon up at 77, 78 or whatever he is. And Mark Andrews there at 7,000. I mean, if you want to play all three of those guys, like you're going to have to punt, and you might really not want to make some of those decisions, right? So that's really what makes it hard getting to that game. But it's a very good environment. Both of those teams. I mean, Baltimore's defense has been terrible. Also, they're giving it up to everybody. I actually considered as some super deep tournament teams some Daniel Jones plays. Problem is he just doesn't have anybody to throw the ball to. That makes it a little rough. So kind of a weird game to really stack. And I think there's only a couple of different ways you can do it. So, that also, we talked about it earlier, that kind of also took me off that game a little bit. It's not just the pricing. It's just that anybody that does go to that game, it's been getting talked up a little bit around the industry this week. Anybody that does go to that game is probably going to be stacking it, in a very similar manner, right? So, and then you're allowed to play some really popular guys like some Enos or some Stevensons or some Tyler Lockett's in those same builds, and all of a sudden you're at like a 2v2 or a 3v3 against 8% of the teams that played Lamar Jackson stacks, right? So that kind of pigeonholes you into some really similar builds with them. So in addition to the pricing, it just makes it a little difficult for me to get to that, with the heavy exposures. Not to say that it's bad, right? But and same kind of deal with the KC side of that Buffalo KC game. Obviously Mahomes has a few more weapons than Lamar does, and then Daniel Jones does, right? So it's a little bit easier. And if I were going to kind of pivot, I think at least this morning I'm actually pivoting from the Lamar Jackson to the Mahomes stuff at least, and playing him with some. You can get to Kelsey, because you have MVS there at 4,500. You have Juju at 52 or whatever he is. You have some cheaper options that allow you to, still make some moves, with the rest of your build. So I think that's an interesting way that you can go as well. But yeah, I kind of agree with you. Like for the most part, quarterbacks are just like, you just, if you're running stacks, and you usually should be, right, in NFL, then quarterbacks are, I mean, you can get there with 20 points from a quarterback. You can't really get there with 15 points from a running back necessarily, like to win tournaments, right? So quarterbacks are I don't want to say interchangeable, but I think it's a little less critical that you spend a whole hell of a lot of time on finding the quarterback play or the guy that's going to outperform everybody else in the week, because there could be several guys that put up 25 points, and those could be winning tournament teams in the same light, right? So I agree with you. I think getting to or focusing more on the skill position players is generally a better, kind of construction build where you want to start. Unless, until you get to the quarterbacks, like we're talking about with Josh Allen here, that are pushing 20%. That's really when you want to start paying attention about, to fading guys and pivoting and doing all that kind of stuff. So, I guess we could just move right into more so all of the running backs. You mentioned Kamara. I'm kind of landing on him as well. We have a bunch of injury news in that game, right? The entire starting receiver core for the Saints is out, right? No Michael Thomas, no Chris Olave, and no Jarvis Landry, right? So I kind of have a feeling that with no exposure to Taysom Hill, I'm going to be closing my laptop shortly after lock as well when they give him all of the goal line carries and don't get any to Kamara. You know what I mean? Like, it's just, I'm going to want to slam my head in the door. But, I'm landing on Kamara as well. I think his workload is pretty solidified for the most part. But it does kind of concern me that they gave Taysom Hill all of the work last week or the week before, whatever it was. And, like they still have Mark Ingram there too, so balking a little bit at that, but I still like Kamara at 67 for sure. And he's kind of in a dead zone price wise, he's not all the way up at the top with the Saquons and the Fournettes and the CMCs, right?
And he's a good price. He's a little higher on FanDuel. On FanDuel, he's priced up with the other guys, really.
Yeah. But I think it's an interesting price spot. He's only coming in. I'm showing him about 12% right now, right? So that's some ownership that I can really kind of get behind. I like that a lot. And on the other side of the game, the Bengals, their offense has just been frustrating, man. I really want to get to their passing game, right? And I think there's going to be some opportunities for them today for sure. I think the Saints are a little banged up in the secondary. But Joe Mixon at 6,900, I'm just finding it really difficult to get him. I'm not crazy about the price, and I'm not really all that enthused about the Cincy rushing offense. You know what I mean? They haven't been very good all season, and I think it's going to be easier to attack New Orleans through the air today. So I'm really, despite a sub 10% ownership number on Mixon, I'm just kind of coming in under on him, personally. And that's really it in that, upper 6K range that I really kind of even glossed over, really not much there. So, we were talking construction a little bit, that kind of forces you into either going all the way up or all the way down, which is kind of why I've landed on Kamara as well, right? So it's just a little bit of a different build, a little more contrarian. You're not eating 20% necessarily on a questionable running back, or anything like that, So I think Kamara's workload is pretty solidified, and they're going to be using him. He didn't even have to get into the end zone. Saw last week, right, where he didn't score at all, and he still put up 26 or whatever he put up. So really do like him as well.
Yeah, those are really good takes there. I think let's look at a few questions we got. Ownership on Chase Edmonds. He's really low, guys, super low. I don't even like him in that game. We do have, I think, is Mozart in?
I would
think so.
I think they're both in, and they're basically a split timeshare between two. And the rushing offense isn't very good, right? The problem there is that in that game is that Miami's defense is a pass funnel defense, like I mentioned earlier, and Minnesota can really throw the ball. They've got a couple of really good receivers on the outside, and Cousins isn't the worst in the world, right? So if Miami is going to be playing from behind, they could very well just totally ignore the running game and just and go right to the passing game. That does kind of keep me on some Minnesota stacks a little bit, and some Jalen Waddle, some Tyreek Hill. But I do have concerns that Miami's just not going to run the ball at all. So for the most part, I would probably just stay off of those guys, even though they're just super unpopular.
Yeah, I agree. I really don't like that game. T Higgins is active. I think I've seen that come through.
Yep, getting
Oh, yeah.
inactives coming through right now.
Hurst
So that
active,
is
Mozart
so that is
active,
a little
yeah.
bit of a hit to the Tyler Boyd, Jamar Chase plays there. Higgins
Well,
active.
wait, Goldie. We seen this where Higgins was active and then he didn't
That's
play.
true.
So,
Yeah,
I mean,
true
can
last
we
week.
even trust that news? I still like all three receivers. I've never ever faded
Yep.
away from Tyler Boyd. I think Tyler Boyd's in my main lineup, to be honest with you. I'm still taking a shot on that. I think I'm gonna
Yeah.
leave him too. He's in one of my biggest lineups. I think Tyler Boyd is in my 555 milli lineup right now with Kamara. I have a Kamara Tyler Boyd stack in that game from that
All
with
right.
the pack.
So
Yeah, I still like that option. I had to get different because I am playing a lot of Rondell Moore, Lockett, a little bit.
So
So
Damian
I gotta
Harris.
get a little.
Yeah, sorry to interrupt you, man.
What's that?
Yeah,
Oh,
Damian Harris
Harris is
is
he's inactive.
out.
So
He's out.
Stevenson
So
is going to be the guy. So
yep. And I think it's a good spot. Like I was saying earlier,
yeah,
I think you just eat it in a lot of spots. You don't have to get to 50% Ramondre or anything, ridiculous. But
yeah.
I think coming in at 20% if you're building a bunch of teams is probably pretty warranted. You don't have to get all the way to 30 necessarily, depending on how your builds go. But it's a really, really good spot, and the volume's going to be there for him. So I think the ownership is probably warranted. Now, if he starts popping to 40% or something, then I think you just like easily come in well underweight to that, right? But I think it's like price is good and the spot's really good. I think it's pretty good chalk in that spot.
I don't disagree. I still hate New England running back, but just for what it's worth, guys, I do get them wrong every time. So being that I'm under, you should probably have them at 60% today. For Stevenson, and just maybe even lock him in. Who the hell knows? That might be a better play because I never get them right. I either fade them when they go off and I play them when they don't. So like it's probably going to be the toughest decision which running back today goes well. I'm heavy Kamara. I don't have as much Nick Chubb. He's very pricey on FanDuel at 9,500. He'll probably score a bunch of points as always.
Yeah, same deal there. I mean, New England's giving it up on the ground a little bit too. That's where they're most exploitable as well. And
Yeah.
Cleveland, that's their strength, right? Or just running the football. Now, if you do want to get off some of the Nick Chubb, I don't think that 5,700 Kareem Hunt is bad. And he's coming in, sub 3% that I'm showing him right now as well. So I think both of those guys are playable. If I had to choose one, I would just probably get to some Kareem Hunt. Because he's 2,500 cheaper. So,
yeah, that's another thing. I think a lot of people don't play him. His price is getting up there so much that Kareem Hunt takes some work from him too. So
yeah,
we have to consider that.
Yeah, one other spot that we haven't talked about at all is the Indianapolis backfield, right?
Oh man.
So you got
Jackson.
you got JT out, right? You have Nyheim Hines out as well. So you've got Deion Jackson and Phillip Lindsay heading up the backfield there. So I would imagine they're probably going to split carries pretty evenly. They've been working in a little bit of Phillip Lindsay, and he's performed okay. He got hurt, when he was in Denver and kind of lost his job. But the guys put up over 1,000 yards 2 or 3 years ago. So he is a capable running back in the league, so I wouldn't get too crazy with the Deion Jackson there. But he's coming in, what 5%, give or take, right now as well. So if you want to pivot in tournaments, I'd say this is probably some deep tournament play, because Indianapolis's rush offense has been pretty bad all season. If you want to pivot off of some of the Kenneth Walker 5,400 or Darrell Henderson 5,100, go right in the middle to Deion Jackson at 52, or some Philip Lindsay down a little bit lower. Maybe get off some Eno at the 46, get to some Philip Lindsay at 47. I think those are okay deep tournament pivots. Definitely not cash plays, but those guys are viable as well. So we're dealing with a lot of injuries, which is kind of typical, right? We get to week 5, week 6, or whatever in the NFL, and everybody starts getting hurt. So, but just another sort of injury ridden backfield you got to be aware of there.
Yeah, it's definitely a lot of different things happening this week, guys, with like plays. So like being in the just it's a tough week. That's why it's a good tournament week. Zay Jones is active today as well. We don't have Marvin Jones in that game as well, so he could be a viable cheap guy now too.
Yep,
It's a
he was
dome
popping.
game,
Yeah, definitely popping a little bit earlier as a
he's
cheap
popping
guy.
out too. So like, man, it's a tough week, guys. I do one play I didn't talk about either. I do like some Drake London. I didn't talk about Atlanta and Kittle. We did talk about Kittle a little bit on the show. I do like a Drake London Kittle type pairing. I think a little bit. Some Kittle looks a little bit cheap today.
Yeah, for
They're
sure.
spreading it around for what it's worth, but I think Kittle should be the guy they start going to more.
Yeah, definitely. They've got a bunch of weapons there, right? They've got Ayuk and Debo, and Kittle, and they have Jeff Wilson out of the backfield, right? So, it's a little difficult to kind of stack the Niners. Today, I think their defense is just so good. They have the best defense in the league in pretty much every metric, and so I have concerns personally. I actually did look at some Garoppolo teams because Atlanta's defense been giving it up in spades. So I did look at some Jimmy G with some Kittle or some Debo, because nobody's going to be playing those. And I think those are that's one of the few stacks today that you could run, without a run back, right? You could run some Minnesota. You could run some San Francisco without a run back. They'd probably have to be skinny stacks, because I doubt Jimmy G is really going to throw for 350 and 4 or something like that necessarily. But I mean, which would necessitate you having both or two of his pass catchers. But it's definitely not going to be played. And if you're looking for Millie teams and things like that, that's definitely one that could pop. And Jimmy G at 5,500, it's a good price, right? It makes a lot of things. Kittle down there at 51. We talked about him on Friday. I'm going to be playing a lot of Kittle today, and if it doesn't work, it doesn't work. But I'm going to keep doing it every single week until it does. So, I think that's a really interesting. I'm glad you brought that up. Really interesting way to attack that game. You can play some Jeff Wilson too. Like 6,200 is not an excellent price, but he's getting all the work out of the backfield. Got to contend a little bit with some sneaky Debo carries, but it's an interesting stack for sure, and nobody's going to be playing it. So,
yeah, that's going to be that's an interesting one right there. I didn't think about that one. I did give out the Atlanta defense on FanDuel at 3K min, but they do suck. But I mean, any defense is viable, guys. I think we maybe just go through some defenses and stuff. But yeah, Nick Bosa inactive helps Falcons. Yeah, no one's talking about that side of the game. I like Drake London. Pitts is active too. Is that new?
Yeah, Pitts is active, and of course, if you are going to run it back with anybody, if you are stacking San Francisco, it would be Drake London, right? I don't think you can really punt Algier out of the backfield. Certainly
God,
not this week.
Don't play him, please. Don't play him.
Definitely not this week. They're only allowing 3 yards a carry. That's half a yard or even a full yard better than everybody else in the league. So that's why I'm finding it really, really difficult to get to Atlanta teams. But and really back on the other side, a lot of San Francisco as well. Just their defense is just so good. That said, they could very well get exploited today. This is a road game down in Atlanta. So it's not totally unheard of for a team in the NFL to go on a road and get doors blown out. So it's definitely reasonable. And if I were going to run it back with anybody, it definitely would be Drake London.
Yeah, I do like some Drake London today, a little bit for sure. So, all right, we got any more questions, guys? I don't see much. A lot of inactivity in the chat, which is good. It gives everyone, hey, this guy's in, this guy's out, whatnot. So, I do got to build a lot of lineups today. Goldie, did we want to talk about any more positions? We kind of skimmed through everything, a balanced approach, what we're doing. I think we didn't name any like crazy flyer guys. I think we have a lot of sleeper guys were built into what we talked about, with some of the stacks we're going at, like some low owned stacks. Give you, Robert Tonyan if you are stacking Green Bay or something as another viable tight end cheap option. Dawson Knox is a cheap option in that game. We didn't talk about Devin Singletary, but if you want to get off Josh Allen, I'm finding a way to build a little bit of him. That way, get Devin Singletary and like MVS, like a receiver combo, like maybe, MVS catches a bomb touchdown and then Devin Singletary's got 2 touchdowns or something. So you're getting the exposure to that high scoring game they think it's going to be, but you're getting different from what everybody else is doing. And I think that's how you got to build a lot of your constructions when you're looking at, what affects Josh Allen? If Josh Allen doesn't go off and they still score 40, is it James Cook a touchdown and 2 to Devin Singletary? And Josh Allen doesn't have that many through the air. Like if Diggs fails, like who is it? Gabe Davis, Isaiah McKenzie, Dawson Knox. They just spread the ball around. And if there's going to be a high scoring game and they do score points, maybe it's not one of the players that everyone's on. So that's also how you get different as well. So I don't see any more questions coming in the chat, guys. I think maybe Goldie give a couple last minute takes or conviction plays, and then we'll probably bounce, guys, unless you got another question.
Yeah, man. I don't know. I think we've kind of covered most everything. Let's see if I got any other sort of hidden. I mean, we didn't talk about any Jacksonville today. We did talk about them Friday, right? But I think they're still popping a little bit. Again, you got the question marks in the Indianapolis backfield. I'm not sure that I'm probably going to temper my exposure to Jacksonville. Even though I really do like Trev and Zay Jones, I think that's if I'm going to play any, that's probably where I'm going to try and focus. Obviously Christian Kirk, right? But I really, really like the Zay Jones price. He does have a little bit of a gimpy ankle, so you got to be kind of careful with the exposure. Wouldn't get to 30% of him or anything, that crazy. But do like Trev a little bit. Again, I just have kind of question marks with Indianapolis and how they're going to score as well. So that kind of took me off a little bit of the Jacksonville that we talked about earlier in the week. But I'm not really finding that I'm getting to much else. I mean, we've pretty much covered everything. Again, I think my favorite now Tom Brady plays are probably still just Tom Brady naked. We have seen a little bit of steam on him over the last couple of days, the ownership wise. He was 6-7% or whatever. That's ticked up to about 10, give or take. Now they're the number that they're laying, it's pushed to 10 throughout the week here from 7.5 where it opened. So, all signs are really pointing to Tampa Bay kind of blowing the doors off of Pittsburgh here. So, I'm also kind of coming off of them a little bit in that I'm not sure that Brady is going to need to throw a whole hell of a lot. He probably will still, right? So it's going to make it really hard for me to peg which pass catcher he's going to. So if I were playing a bunch of him, I would still probably just try and play him naked and hope he throws 4 or 5 scores and hope they don't go to all the one guy. But I think, getting to some Tom Brady, Mike Evans, or Tom Brady, Chris Godwin stacks, I think those are definitely playable. You can even throw in some Fournette as well if you want to 3-stack Brady. I think that's still playable. But I just kind of came off it a little bit personally. We didn't really touch. We did have a question in here about Ertz or Kelsey. Personally, personally, I would go with Ertz. I think his workload is a little bit more solidified, even though Kelsey obviously gets a boatload. Ertz is also $1,900 cheaper, right? So he's getting a solid 8 to 10 targets a week, and he's one of the few bright spots that the Arizona offense has had kind of all season. And at 4,900, I think it's you're really only eating about 10-12% ownership on Ertz as well. Now Kelsey's not going to be very popular because he's 7,800, at least on DK, but at basically a negligible ownership difference, 8% to Kelsey, 10-12% to Ertz or whatever, I think I'd rather just save the money and then go elsewhere if it's just a 1v1 decision. How about you?
Yeah, I'm paying up at tight end a lot today, so I think that's a better idea to do. But I do like Ertz. I did mention him in that game because he is getting a ton of work for the price. And if you're going to spend up on Kelsey, you're going to lose value, and your rest of your lineup, so your median is going to come down a little bit.
Yep.
But I think yeah, and he's getting a lot of red zone looks and everything. So I think those are good takes, guys. So I do like Ertz and Kelsey. I like both of them. I like Kelsey and Andrews together today. Double tight end, I think, might be a different option than most people are seeing. That's a way to get different two priced up tight ends. I don't think anybody's going to play. And if they both have 30 plus points today, you're probably going to see me in the top of something. So that's what I feel. So some of my better lineups fell together today with both tight end spend ups, but I do like Ertz. I'm building a lineup with him right now. I do like Knox. I do like Tanya, and I do like some of those other guys. So I'm really spreading out my tight end exposure. So I don't think I'm just playing Andrews and Kelsey. I'm playing Ertz. I'm playing on the guys, that you guys are asking questions about too. So I think it's a real spread out day for some of these spots today. And then I'm kind of like not playing certain games. I'm just kind of like keeping my pool small, but it's spreading it out within the pool. You know what I mean? I'm not getting to some of these weird games. Like I'm not really playing Miami. I'm not really playing any Pittsburgh. I'm not really playing the San Francisco Atlanta game besides some Drake London and Kittle. Like I'm not playing Algier. I'm not playing a lot of the Giants. I'm not playing a lot of New York Patriots. I usually play Jacoby Myers a little bit more. I'm not playing any Carolina. I'm taking big stands today, guys, and I think that's what you guys should be doing. Like tight pool, but like get a good mix in your pool today.
Yeah, I kind of agree, man. Quickly, I guess we can go over some defenses, and it's just kind of the usual defense disclaimer. We've got a couple of teams that are popping ownership-wise, and that's mostly because they're cheap, right? Earlier in the week, it was the Panthers at the down at the bottom, 2,400. They're still seeing about 10%. That's come down a little bit, and that ownership has really kind of shifted over to the Saints. I'm really not sure why that's happened, to be quite honest. The Saints secondary is missing Marshawn Lattimore, and so that could really mean that Jamar Chase or Tyler Boyd or even T. Higgins a little bit could go off. With some weaknesses in the New Orleans secondary there. So they're seeing about 13%, I'm showing. And I could be missing something, but I think that's a little bit too high. Price seems a little bit fishy. I mean, 2,800 is nice and it makes things work, but any kind of aggregate ownership for a defense over 10%, I start to balk a little bit, unless it's just a super, super obvious spot. And this doesn't seem to be that today, even though the Saints defense is respectable and we've had questions with the Cincinnati offense. today might not be the spot where you want to just be eating 15% ownership on a defense like that. So for the most part, I'm probably going to stay spread again. We talked a little bit, a couple days ago about spending up on defense. If you have some leftover salary, I think that's still playable, still viable. And the more expensive defenses are actually popping the hardest in projections. So again, it's a super volatile position, so temper your expectations for defense and spread out if you're building a bunch of teams. And I'd be careful about just eating Panthers chalk down at 2,400 because they still get the Rams, and last I checked, the Rams are still a pretty good team. So I'd be careful with that. But for the most part, I'm just going to stay pretty spread out with defense.
Yeah, for sure. I do think the Rams are a decent team, and they have played well. They have some weapons on that team. I mean, one of the best receivers in the league, obviously. And the Panthers are the Panthers. So I do have a little bit of the Panthers, but like I said, I like some other defenses. I got a little Saints. I played Atlanta. I'm playing all these different teams. I even played some Jets against my Packers.
Sure.
I got a lot of the Jaguars too. I mean, we did talk about Trevor Lawrence stack and all that, guys. I do want to remind people that I've gotten a little bit less in that game just because that total never really came up. Like I thought it might come up a little bit. It's only like a 41-point total, so it's super low, but it's a dome game. And I think Pittman's good on the other side. I don't know who else the hell Colts are gonna do anything with. The Jags, I like Kirk a lot today. I like a lot Lawrence Kirk stack with Pittman type thing. Could be explosive, but I mean that's a low total, guys. So be careful with that. That's why I'm having a hard time getting off these higher total games with these lower price players. Like, I mean, you're sacrificing a lot of points to play guys in other games that have lower totals and less projections than you are in some of these higher total games with these lower price tags. So, all right, guys. Well, if we haven't got any other questions, we got 22 watching. Don't forget to hit the like button on the way out. Appreciate it, guys. We had a nice little show with Goldie today. It's been an hour. Bobby and Sheets are both out today. The Dodgers lost. That's who I had picked. And one of my pick'ems to win it all. They never win it all. Just frustrating. When I pick them every time I pick them, I should say. Like
we are all now Cleveland Guardians fans, boys. Let's get it.
Cleveland Guardians fans, right?
Like, let's do it.
Yeah. So, all right, guys. Thanks, Goldie, for stopping in on the show with me. So I didn't have to do all the talking, and we have your projections on the site now, guys. So this is aggregate projections. I know 23 watching. It aggregates all these different sites, pulls them all together, and that's that projection. It's a huge thing. It's what pros are doing. Pros do this, guys. They take they subscribe to all these different sites, and then they take all the projections and they put them together in their favorite optimizer, right? Or whatever they do, or they build their own optimizer and they just pull all the projections in. And then what they do is then aggregate them together and they weight them differently based on what projections they like or what more they feel that are more accurate. But this is Goldie. He does all this with his model, pulls all these different ones in and gives it to you guys. So we're already doing it for you. We're doing the work for you. So don't forget to hit the like button on the way out. Thank you guys for that. And Goldie, one last thought or before we go?
Quickly, I'm gonna probably we had inactives come out, so probably push one last projection update. So look out for that, and that's really it, man. Good luck, everybody, and let's win it.
Once again, thanks, Goldie. The update will be out soon, guys. We'll push another update, and as always, let's get it today.